Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and this is my monthly trans life update video for February 2022. But I am titling this one Sexuality and Dating as a Trans Woman, and that's because that's what the topic is this month. So that is primarily what I will be focusing on throughout this video. And just for quick point of clarity, when I say sexuality, I mean sexual preference. So whether you're bisexual, homosexual, pansexual, whatever you are, that's what I mean by sexuality. I don't mean like the act of having sex, or you know what I mean. But before I get into that, I am going to give my monthly HRT update, since I do that every month. If you don't give a shit about my HRT, that's fine. You can look in the description below and click on the timestamp to where I start talking about the main topic for this video, which is dating and sexuality as a trans woman. From my perspective, that's should be said, from my experience. You can click on the description below, click on the timestamp, and I'll take you right there if you don't care about my HRT. That's okay, I understand. So let me go ahead and dive into that first part first, though, the HRT update. My 1.5-year anniversary has recently gone by. It was February 4th that happened, and so just a quick reflection back on the first 1.5 years on HRT. First of all, it's gone by really quickly, but secondly, I can really feel the difference between now and when I first started, not just because of the HRT, but also just that I really feel more and more used to living as a woman, and in general, just both because of my experience continuing to live as a woman, and also because of the effects that the hormones have on me. I just more and more feel like a woman, and less doubt my identity. I have less and less of what one might call imposter syndrome, where I had a lot more of that when I was first getting started. I'm a lot more comfortable in my skin now. I'm a lot more comfortable in the all-female spaces without really thinking much about it. I'm a lot more comfortable going into women's bathrooms without really having any second thoughts about it. Although I do live in an area where it's less likely for me to encounter some aggression in that area. It's still possible. It's possible everywhere in this country, in this world, but I think it's a little less likely here. In fact, I'm pretty sure that in my state it is illegal to discriminate against trans people using the bathroom of their gender identity. So I'm in a good place for that, to be fair, but I still, when you first start, it's like you have these feelings of doubt in the back of your mind, like, oh, are people gonna be, staring at me, and blah blah blah. That's all gone now. I feel a lot more comfortable just in women's spaces. I just feel a lot more comfortable being a woman. So that would be, I think, the big reflection on my 1.5 year HRT anniversary, which was actually about 3 weeks ago now at this point. Now, as for the effects of the HRT itself, I don't really have a lot to update on that front. If you've been following my videos, I've been talking about getting the sub-C estradiol injections. I switched to that in December, and that my ultimate goal is for breast development. And I said last time that there was some progress in that area, and there continues to be. It's not where I needed to be yet, but definitely heading in the right direction. The big update will be next month in March, because that is when I'm going to get my next blood test to test my estradiol levels, my estrogen levels, and hopefully my estrogen levels are a lot higher than they were. Um, I expect that they will be. I've definitely been feeling it. I think I may have mentioned in my last video that I go through sort of a PMS. I wasn't sure if it was like PMS until one of my cis female friends I was describing it to was like, "Yeah, that sounds just like PMS." Just these drastic emotional shifts or lack of control of my emotions that seems to happen not every week, but oftentimes about midway through my weekly estradiol cycle. So I inject myself on Fridays, so about halfway through the cycle, Monday or Tuesday ish. Sometimes when I experience the PMS. Um, so that's the thing that happens. But I really expect that my estrogen levels should be drastically increased when I get the test in March. So that will be um, the next big update next month. Also, update on my hair. Uh, Going for the purplish. It's supposed to be like purple red. A little bit more on the purple side, but I initially dyed it and didn't really get into my roots, and the gray was starting to show through pretty quickly. And then I redid it with a slightly darker shade. And if you happen to watch my Nostalgia Lane videos, which you should, I recorded that before I redid my hair, so you'll see like purple highlights basically if you watch that video. This is the final product, at least for the time being, until I decide I want to change my color again, which eventually I will. Anyway, why am I talking about my hair in an HRT video? Because my hair is like a pretty big deal for me. Like as far as gender euphoria, like one of my friends recently said, "Oh, by this time next year, your hair will be halfway down your back," and I was like, "Oh." Get the little tinge of euphoria because along with my breasts, I feel like getting my hair the way that I want it is another big thing for me. Anyways, enough of that. Now we can move on to the main topic of this video. All right, now we get into the main topic of this video, which is sexuality and dating from the perspective of a trans woman. This is my rendition of that, as there are many videos like this on YouTube. I have watched a few in my day, but unlike some of those other trans women, I am not going to get into details about my sex life. I appreciate that other women were willing to put themselves out there and do that. I am not going to do that. I am going to get into some personal things, though, but not that personal. But that's later. Actually, before I do that, I want to just run quickly through a gender identity / sexual preference 101. Hopefully, if you're watching this video, you're already aware of this. But there is a distinct difference between the terms gender identity and sexual preference. I think those two have gotten conflated a lot, thinking that if you're trans, then you're gay. I think that comes from the misperception that a trans woman is actually still a man, and if they're attracted to men, that makes them gay. Not the case. So, real quickly, gender identity, of course, refers to the gender that you identify with, whether it be female, male, non-binary. Of course, the majority of people are cis, which means that they happen to identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth based on their genitalia or other physical characteristics. And trans, obviously, is people like myself who identify with a gender other than what they were assigned at birth. But we all have gender identities, every single one of us, not just trans people. We're all either male, female, non-binary, other. Now, sexual preference is not correspondent to your gender identity. Sexual preference would be homosexual if you are interested in the same gender heterosexual if you're interested in the opposite gender, bisexual if you're interested in both. Pansexual, I think, includes non-binary. I have never been very clear on pansexual as opposed to bisexual, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Um, but you get the point. Um, that is the sexual preference versus gender identity. Now, I kind of want to get into the different, I don't know, sexual preferences that people may have after they've transitioned, because sometimes it changes and sometimes it doesn't. So, one possibility is that you transition and your sexual preference doesn't change, but what we call it changes. So, let's say you are male to female, you live a lot of your life as a male, presenting yourself as male, and you were attracted to women, then you would have been considered as a heterosexual male. Then you transition, now you are identifying as a trans female, but you are still attracted to women. So who you are attracted to has not changed. It's been consistent the whole time. You were attracted to women the entire way through, exclusively women, the entire way through. But what we call it has changed, because now you're a lesbian. Now you're homosexual, whereas before you were heterosexual, even though the sexual preference has not changed, just what we call it has changed. On the other end of the spectrum, you could be a gay male attracted to men, and then you transition. Hey, congratulations! Now you're heterosexual because you are a woman who is attracted to men. So you are now heterosexual. So, from my personal experience with the trans women that I have encountered in person, and a lot of it online and trans groups and Reddit, Facebook, etc., I feel that that seems like the most common. Also, YouTube videos that I've watched. I feel like more often than not, a person does not change their sexual preference. That's what it seems to me. But I've also gotten into arguments with people on like Reddit or whatever, going, no, 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 I know a million people who change it. I'm like, okay, fine. I don't know. It's just my personal experience. It seems more common than not. For people to not change their sexual preference when they transition, but we change what we call it. But then another possibility is that you change from only liking one gender to now kind of becoming more bisexual, or maybe even pansexual. And then, of course, the other option is just to flip completely, where you were heterosexual as a man and you are still heterosexual as a woman, because you've switched from being attracted to men to women exclusively to now being attracted to men exclusively. I've never heard of that, but I'm sure it exists. Everything exists. So, but I have not met anyone in that category. I fall more in that second category of when I transitioned, I found myself more leaning bisexual. Whereas as a man, I was never attracted to men. Just two men together was just never something that was personally appealing to me. It's not something I wanted to be involved with. I don't know. It's just too much male energy, I think. I've always been attracted to feminine energy. So I wasn't interested as a man in other men. But on the occasions, like before I transitioned, when I would like dress up in women's clothing secretly and try to think of myself as a woman during that period of time, I would find myself attracted to men as a woman. So I've always been attracted to men as a woman, but never as a man. So when I transitioned, I went from being a heterosexual male to being something closer to bisexual, but there's some caveats, which I'll get into that a little bit later. But for now, we'll just call it bisexual. And I do find that less common, although I have heard people say that it is more common than I think it is. But that's the category that I fall in. So then, with that being the case, one of the things I can't help but think about a lot is why? Like, why am I bisexual as a woman but was heterosexual as a man? And one possible explanation is this idea of comp het. This was first brought to my attention by a trans woman in one of the trans groups that I belong to. Um, and comp het stands for compulsory heterosexuality. And it's this idea that our patriarchal society is really pushing women to be heterosexual. And I think it's used a lot amongst lesbians, cis lesbians. And that for them, a lot of times they themselves or other lesbians that they know often will have the illusion that they think they're heterosexual or bisexual when really they're not, because our patriarchal society, with everything underlying, like everything subliminal and everything we consume within media and television and absolutely everything that we consume as we walk by, really pushes women toward being heterosexual, even if they're actually not, more so than men. And my personal theory on that is that in this patriarchal society, women are expected to pop out the babies. They are expected to reproduce. And in very traditional thinking, you need a heterosexual partner in order to make that happen, although in reality, you don't. All you need is their sperm. But nevertheless, I think that's the idea behind compulsory heterosexuality. So when it is applied to trans women, what do we as trans women really want more than anything is to feel more feminine, more like a woman. We want to feel like we're a woman. And I talked about this at the beginning of my video, that I'm starting to actually feel that way. In a world where comp het is a thing, then what is one thing that will really just make us feel like we're more like a woman? Being attracted to men, because society is telling women you're supposed to be attracted to men. So as a trans woman, being attracted to men makes you feel more like a woman. Now, all of this is just a theory. I'm not saying that this is like a definitive truth or anything like that. But I think it's a very solid theory for why I find myself attracted to men. Do I find myself attracted to men because I'm genuinely attracted to them, or because there is something that has been really deeply ingrained into me throughout my life that being attracted to men makes me more of a woman? And I think that there is a very high chance that that is true. Now, knowing that, that's a very distinct possibility. Does that make me less attracted to men? Oh, it's just society making me do that. No, it doesn't really. I mean, it really doesn't. So even if that's the case, it doesn't change my attraction. But I think it's a very interesting and I would say likely theory as to why I personally, at least, went from heterosexual to bisexual. And I cannot speak for anyone else who made that same transition, transitioning from male to female and then transitioning to being bisexual. I cannot speak for anyone else but myself, but I think it's a very likely possibility. Okay, now I want to get into the complexities of my personal bisexuality, which I had alluded to earlier. I am pretty definitively sure now at this point that I am attracted to men purely for sex. And when it comes to wanting love and relationships and who I might want to have as a long-term partner and potentially live with and spend every moment of every day with for a long period of time, hopefully not every moment of every day, but you know what I mean. Women, like, I cannot imagine being in that kind of relationship with a man. Now, obviously, things can always change. I can meet the right man, and that can completely change. But I'm just talking about how I feel right now, pretty definitively, that I am interested in men for sex and women for love and also sex as well. but uh, and furthermore, my attraction to men is more sporadic. Like there are fewer individual men that I find myself attracted to than women. So I definitely lean heavily more toward women. And I definitely feel like if I'm going to be in a long term relationship again, it'll be with a woman and not a man. So now, with that said, I would like to have the brief discussion about labels in general and how clunky they are. Because I started thinking about it when I was trying to label myself now. Okay, so I am bisexual with a leniency toward women. I heard the term homoflexible, which is the opposite of heteroflexible. Heteroflexible is if you're heterosexual, but you don't mind, having occasionally, delving into same-sex relations every once in a while. Homoflexible would be you're primarily homosexual, but don't mind occasionally diving into heterosexual relations. So I guess that's what I am. But labels kind of suck. They're very clunky. They're very crude. And it got me thinking that I believe that in an ideal world, we wouldn't have these labels. We wouldn't need them at all. Now, we do need them because it does help younger people, especially who are trying to struggle with their sexual identity or their gender identity or both, to really fit themselves in the group that they belong in and say, hey, that person is like me. So I think the labels right now are important to help people define themselves as they are struggling with their identity. However, like I feel like in an ideal world, people could just have romantic or sexual relations with whoever the fuck they want to, and nobody has to put a goddamn label on it. So, like, for example, right now, if you had a female friend who you've known for a while and she had always dated men or had sex with men as far as you knew, and then she told you, oh, I'm dating this woman now, the first thing probably that's going to come to your mind, oh, I didn't know she was bisexual, or in some people's cases, oh, I didn't know she was a lesbian. You would think one or the other. Why do you need to think that? Why can't it just be, oh, okay, like why can't people just be attracted to whoever they're attracted to regardless of gender? And that can change at any point in their life. They could have been dating men their whole life and now they're dating women. Who cares? Like, why do we need to label that? It just should be accepted that any human being can be attracted to any other human being at any time, and let's all just accept that. That would be my ideal. That would also be more inclusive to the non-binary folk, because what label do they use? If you're non-binary, maybe you can shed some light on that for me, because it feels like that y'all don't have a label for your sexual preference. Because if you're non-binary and you're attracted to men, what label is that versus when you're attracted to women? So labels are clunky, and I wish we could live in a world where we didn't need them and everyone just was accepting of everybody being attracted to whatever human being they feel like being attracted to at any given moment, and we just all accept that. But of course, that is not the world we live in now. So in the world we live in now, labels are important for helping people to define themselves as they struggle with their sexual identity. Anyways, I need to get that off of my chest really quick. Okay, last thing is that I realized I decided to call this video Sexuality and Dating, and I haven't really talked about dating, and mainly because I don't really do a whole lot of it. But I do kind of just wanted to tell the story about how, before I transitioned, like I would obsessively check dating apps, like I really needed to get something out of them. Like there was a hole in my life that I needed to fill by finding some partner on a dating app, which is always going to be unfulfilling, because that is, let's just say there are very low odds of that happening. And then I'll get 100 comments. Oh, but I met my partner on a dating app. Great for you. But I've had a lot of frustrations, and most of the people that I know have had frustrations with him. But yet I was like obsessed with him. because I felt like I needed to fill this hole in my life. And then once I transitioned, then I felt more whole, more complete, being able to live as my true, genuine self. And this is going to sound a little corny, but a lot of the feminine energies that I was looking for externally, I was able to find internally. So it was me all along. That's where it gets a little corny. But it's true. Like I really put them aside. I re-signed up for some of the dating apps as a woman and set it for bisexual settings, but I rarely check them. Like rarely. Whereas before I was just kind of obsessing over them. Um, and I went on dates occasionally and an encounter here or there. I told you I'm not getting too much of my sex life, but both men and women, but kind of pretty rarely, if I'm being honest. Like most of the time, like I just didn't really care. I feel pretty happy single. But recently I did meet a woman that I have been seeing a little bit, and not going to get into too much detail. I'm not sure where it's going yet. We're still getting to know each other. But once I met her, that's when, first of all, I definitively decided I definitely want to be in a long-term relationship with a woman as opposed to a man, whether it's her or someone else. Definitely feeling that way. But also when I met her, I was like, hey, you know what? I think I am ready for a long-term relationship. Whereas before, I just didn't feel like I needed it. And now I feel like, yeah, actually, I'm open to it. So that's where I'm at in my dating life. Again, I'm going to be very vague about that specific situation. We'll see where it goes. I don't know. But regardless of where it goes with this particular person, I am feeling pretty confident about what I want out of my dating life. As I described earlier, don't need to repeat it again. Hey, thank you for joining me for this month's transition update video with the topic particularly of dating and sexuality as a trans woman. Please join me next month when I give probably what will be the big HRT update, because it'll be after my blood test to see my estrogen count at that point, and I will have another topic probably yet to be determined. So please subscribe and check out that, and please check out all my previous videos about my transition and trans issues in general. I do them once a month, so please subscribe to see all of those. And I mentioned earlier my nostalgia lane videos. I understand if, a lot of people watching this for my trans content are not into my Star Trek reviews and all that sort of thing. That's fine, but you gotta watch my Nostalgia Lane videos. I talk about a movie that I saw when I was a kid and how I feel about it now. And this month I did The Never Ending Story. Well, it was really a lot of fun. So please subscribe for all of that content as well. And I will see you really soon. Goodbye, everybody.